So how can a trip array look like? Let's see some visual over here. So this could be, let's use the example we did previously with the 4 cities. So you can see we got a trip array. After the 4 iterations, we have stored in index 0, Boston, index 1, Chicago, and then Miami and Houston, etc. Right? So now what we want to do now is to really see the distances between them. Okay? Specifically, we want to see what the distance is from Boston to Chicago. In this case, just be careful. Okay, you can see in this case, Boston is a departure city and Chicago is the destination. And then we also want to see what's the distance, what the distance is between Chicago and also Miami. So now in this case, Chicago will be now the departure and also Miami will be the destination. And finally, we also want to find out what the distance is between Miami and also Boston, right? So in total, to really calculate distance, we want to do some lookup for sure. But how many iterations do we need? We need 1, 2, and 3. 3 iterations. What about the loop counter? If we got loop counter I, for example, I should be 0, in which case we're going to calculate the distance between index 0 and index 1. And I can also be 1 in the second iteration, in which case we should really calculate the distance between cities at index 1 and index 2. And then when we go to the third iteration, in that case, we're going to calculate the distance between cities at index 2 and index 3. Should we go to the fourth iteration? Even though the size of the trip is actually 4, the answer is no, because if you follow the same pattern, if you actually go for the fourth iteration, and now the loop counter will be I. In that case, if you follow the same pattern, you will see the city between the distance between city at index 3 and index 4, but there is no index 4 for this particular array, right? You can see the idea. If you recall, the problem that we solved before about is the array sorted. So you actually also use the indices between I and also I plus 1. It's basically the same idea, right? So when you actually specify the upper bounds for your loop counter, you got to be careful, right? That's something I want to say first. So that's about, visually speaking, what we should really expect to compute. And now let's do it. All right. Let's now switch back to Eclipse. Okay. Let's now, before we do the loop, let's now let's do some comments first. Add up departure to destination distances, right? We're going to do 2 by 2 basically, right? Well, 2 cities at a time, that's what I meant. So we want to accumulate the distances, pretty much like adding up, the sum. So let's say integer, let's say distances, right? That's a total distance. Initially just 0. And then let's use our for loop. We can say for. Let's use also I, right? Like I is only within the scope for the loop. I will be initialized to be 0, and then so now I should be less than the trip array, right? You can see this. Let's think about what's going to happen here. The size of the array is determined by the how many variables, right? So you can the size of this particular array should just be how many, right? That's really what we read from the user about how many cities they want to enter. And what will be this index specifically? Let's highlight it. So this index specifically would just be how many minus 1. So that means when we run the loop, you want to make sure the last value for the loop counter will be how many minus 1 minus 1. Right? So that means it should be strictly less than how many minus 1. So that's why I'm going to write this particular upper bound constraint. Right? Just keep that in mind. Right? I can say strictly less than how many minus 1. And then I plus plus. All right? Before I talk about how you may actually look up the table, right? Let me put I over here for sure. Okay? Before I talk about indexing into the array, let's figure out what the source is and what the destination is, right? So let's say here, for the first iteration, I will be simply 0. So that means index 0 over here, corresponding to Boston, this should be the departure city. And also index 1 over here, like I plus 1. So this should be the destination city, right? That's something we got to figure out first. Let's find out what the city is for destination and what the city is for departure, and then we'll figure out exactly how to look back to the arrays that we declared, the 7 array that we declared before. So what I will do is I'm going to say string depth for departure, okay, will be trip at index I. and also string DST for destination. I'll write it down as a comment for you. I+1. Right? I think it might be a very nice actually review about how you manipulate loops in array. So this will be departure, and this will be destination. And also, we want to say, let's say integer, let's say current distance. Well, that's basically the distance we want to figure out. Okay, I'll just say it's assigned to 0. All right, so here's a question. If I know about the departure and also the destination, how do I know which arrays I should really look up, right? For example, in the very first iteration, the source, the departure city, okay, you can see Boston for the very first iteration, right? For the first iteration, the departure will be Boston, and the destination will be Chicago, right? In that case, which array should I really look into? We got 7 arrays over here. We got from Chicago, from Boston, etc. So which one? Should we actually look at from Boston, or should we look at from Chicago, right? Apparently, we should really look at from Boston, right? Because Boston is now the departure city, right? So depending on the departure city value, we should really determine which array to really look up. And then we want to find out what the index is for the destination Chicago and the index into the from Boston array. Similarly, once you get to the second iteration, in that case, departure city has become Chicago. So we should really go to the from Chicago array and then index that into the index that correspond to Miami, the destination city, and so on, right? Let's go back here. So what I should do is I should really do some if conditional, but I'm not sure if you can already predict how complicated things might be, right? Let's still within the loop. Let's say this. If the departure city dot equals, right? Remember, we always compare string values using equals method. If that happens to be Chicago, right? If you remember the table, right? The table, the first one will be Chicago, right? That's the first row. Okay. If that happens to be Chicago, so that means we need to look up this particular array, the one-dimensional array. You can think about it, it's also like a table. It's just like a table with only one single row. And then which column or which index should we really look up? So it depends on what the destination city is, right? So the destination city, if that's Chicago in this case, in that case, we should really see from which index, what index it really corresponds to, right? But I will just write down the if conditional that I think you should write, and then to see if that makes sense to you, okay? So I will simply say if the departure city is Chicago, right? And then I would say depending on what the destination city is, right? I can say if, let's say the destination dot equals, it could be, how many possibilities do we have? 7. We got 7 different cities. It could be Chicago. You might be wondering, well, why would the user go from Chicago to Chicago? Let's just handle that as well. You can definitely make it an error condition if you wish. For now, I'll just handle that anyway. Okay, and then the destination can, what about another possibility? It could be destination dot equals, and then the second one will be Boston, right? You can look up the table yourself. And also, else if, right? We got 7 cities. 1, 2, 3. Oh, actually, let me do it again. Let me just copy this line over here. Somehow it wouldn't allow me to actually, do this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. Okay, somehow it's not really copying very well on my Eclipse. Hopefully it works well for you. Another one. How many have I got? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then one more. Okay, 7. Okay, I'm gonna change this. Chicago, Boston, and also New York, and also Atlanta, Miami, Dallas, and Houston. Oh, capital. All right, just spelling exactly what's really presented in the table. Okay, let's see this. If the departure is actually Chicago, so that means the current distance over here should be assigned to some lookup from Chicago over here, right? So now I should really go to from Chicago. And then what should be the index over here? Well, since the destination is also Chicago, so I should really go to the corresponding index for Chicago. And that's exactly why I actually defined this name constant previously. So now you can directly just use the constant name over here. Just say Chicago. And Chicago simply corresponds to index 0. If that happens to be Boston, it will correspond to index 1 over here, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so I can say Chicago over here. Okay, and then what about this one? Very similar. It will still be the from Chicago array, right? Because the departure city is just Chicago. So I would say now, simply say Boston. Let's finish this, and then we'll predict what we should do in order to finish the rest of the table. Okay, and then I'm just going to do this. Okay, so this will be New York. And then this one will be Atlanta. Okay, New York is somehow, is that how I spelled it? It's New York. Yeah, that's good. I think it should be all capitals, right? Okay, and then we should also go for Miami. And also Dallas. And also Houston. Okay, we can assume that it's going to be one of the 7 cities. The user is not going to make any mistake in this case. Just for this version over here, let's not worry about error handling for the first version for simplicity. Once we get to the final version, I will introduce error handling together with you. Okay. So guys, so far we can see this giant if conditionals over here, right? If the departure city is this particular city, under which we have to consider all the 7 possibility for the destination city. That's basically what we're doing. And then we have to go to the corresponding array from Chicago, for example, that correspond to the departure city. And then the index over here should really correspond to the destination city. That's why we define the name constant. So now, how many times should we actually copy and paste this structure over here for the rest? The answer is 6 times, because now we only cover one single departure city. We should do the same for all the other 6, right? So why don't we do that? Okay. So I think it's really important for you to understand why I'm copying and pasting in the following way, right? So now it should be else if over here. So now rather than Chicago, the second city would be, let's say, Boston. Right, so that will be the departure city, right? So now, since the departure city, first of all, the departure city is Boston, and then the 7 possibility about what the destination city can be, they can stay the same. However, what we should change is about this particular array, because now the departure city is Boston, so that means we should really look into this particular from Boston array instead, right? Hopefully you can see the difference here. It's not completely just copy and paste. You got to change accordingly. So this guy here should be from Boston. Okay, and then I'm gonna copy that and paste. You can see the resulting code is gonna be giant. We have only done 2 departure cities, but we're gonna continue to make it complete. Okay, and I will show you in version 1B, like how you can simplify this a bit. Okay, by using some helper method. But let's just understand systematically. That's what we really should do. Okay. Okay, let me copy this else if. Let's do the next one. So the next one should be, let me do a little bit faster. So Boston, and then we got New York. Okay, and then everything's going to be the same, except that it's going to be from New York. From New York, right? And then I'm going to copy, paste. All right, we're done with New York. The next one will be Atlanta. So why don't we copy this? And then you can see the same structure is being duplicated. So that's why we might need a helper method to improve this rather than repeating the same control structure all along. But we'll see that. Okay. So after New York, the next one will be Atlanta. Okay, so now it will be from Atlanta over here. Okay, copy that, paste. paste, 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 paste. Okay, and the next one will be Miami. We got 3 more. Okay, just bear with us, bear with me, and then you got to do it as well. Okay, so now Atlanta and then Miami. Miami, so that'll be from Miami. Okay, and then copy that, paste, 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 paste. Right? It's tedious, but it is systematic. Right? Hopefully that's the easiest version to understand. All right, so let's now do the next one. Will be dollars. Okay, else if copy that, paste it over here, and now we got dollars. Okay, so now here should be from, and then code completion from dollars. Copy that, paste, 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 and paste. Final one, Houston. And we're not going to have a problem. Houston over here, and then that should be from Houston. Control space, from Houston over here. Copy that, paste, 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 and paste. Right? So that's basically what we have done, right? You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We got 7 departure cities. Under every of the 7 departure city, we also got 7 different destination city. We got 49 possible outcomes that we might actually encounter, right, for the branching conditions, right? 7 times 7. It's just unavoidable. Computationally speaking, it's simply just necessary for us to compute like that. All right, so what about the next? Okay, so what we should do is, once we get a current distance, basically you can see this is outside the last else if. Let's not have the else. Let's assume that we're going to have the correct city without error handling. Okay, so now we're going to say distance, the one to accumulate plus equal the current distance. And then we can actually do the breakdown. So sys out over here, so we can say from, so the departure city, departure to, and then destination plus over here, so the distance should be the current distance. Current distance, and then outside the for loop, I think I might just have did I just spell it wrong? Current distance over here. Okay, good. And then outside the loop, I will simply say here, sys out. Okay, and then I would say the total distance. If you recall what I demonstrated in the previous video, that's exactly what we should put. And then you can also say system.out.println. Sorry, should be out, not error. And then after that, we can say bye to the user. All right, let's now run it very quickly and then see if that works. All right, I don't need to trace it. It's I can trace just for one. Let's first of all run it, and then I'll trace it quickly using debugger. If I run it, how many cities? Let's say 4, using the same example. Let's say Boston, Chicago, Miami, and also Houston. And then it's going to get exactly the output that we saw previously, right? For this version here, we don't worry about error handling. And I want to show you one more thing, okay, quickly, if you don't mind. Let's say we simply just want to, let's say this. We put a breakpoint here. So this, we're gonna let the execution pause over here right after we have initialized the trips array, let's say, okay? So let me do it again. Let me run the debugger over here. You can move your debug button here. So it's going to debug the mileage app. If you click on that, how many cities? Let's say 4 again. So let's type again. Boston, Chicago, and also Miami, and also Houston. As soon as I hit enter, we're actually going to do we're going to exit from the loop, and then it's going to set up the trip array properly, and then we're going to reach this line. That's what's going to happen, right? Okay, switch to debug perspective over here. So now we are here, line number 41, right? Right before, so right after the loop. So now if you look at the let me go to variables. If you go to trip over here, you can see Boston, Chicago, Miami, Houston, right? That's the array we have we have set up so far. And then let's say we just want to calculate the distance. Let's just see the first one. We want to see the distance between Boston and Chicago, right? That'll be the first one. Let me say step over. Okay, so now if you see the value for I for the loop counter is simply 0, right? So let's do some expressions over here. Let me remove the ones from before, and then we want to see what's trip I, and also it's Boston, and also what's trip I plus 1 is Chicago, right? Because currently it's actually 0 and 1. It's a loop counter is 0, so index 0, index 1. So that's why we see Boston and Chicago, right? And then let's just show you this, right? You can see this. And then step over. If you go back to variables, you can see now departure Boston, destination Chicago, right? So you can see departure is not the same as Chicago, so it's going to bypass the entire if branch and then go to the next else if. So if I say step over, so you go to the else if, right? So the else if is checking for Boston, right? Apparently it's gonna work, Boston. So if I say step over, so now it will check to see what the destination is. The destination is actually Chicago, so this will work. So if I say step over, yes, so current distance will be, I need to look up the array from Boston. You can see we got so many arrays over here, each one of them corresponding to a row. You can see that'll be the entire table. But I just want to go to the row for where the Boston is the departure city. So that's this one here, right? If I do it, Chicago, if you look at that, Chicago is actually this particular name constant here. So that'll be index 0. So from Boston, go to index 0, that should be 983, right? Let's check that. Step over, you can see the only value that's changed is 983 over here for the current distance. That's exactly what's happening. And then you can trace further just to make sure every iteration is doing the right thing if you're not sure. Okay, I'll stop here for the debugger. You get a point already. All right, let me move back to the Java perspective. And let me now just maximize this particular Java file, right? This one is working here. However, you can see so many lines of repetitions, especially when you're repeating about if, else if. You can there are two levels of repetition. Let me explain that quickly. For the outer if statement, you can see we check the 7 possibility for the departure city. You can see departure equals Chicago, departure equals Boston, and etc. And within every departure city, we also have to check again what's the 7 possibility for the destination city. If destination equals Chicago, if else if destination equals Boston. We are checking this so many times. Wouldn't that be nice if we can have some helper method to tell us, given the string value for the city, what should be its corresponding index? So that's something we'd like to do. Okay, so for the current video, I'd like to stop here, and then for the next video, we'd like to do version 1B to really, we're still going to use the 7 array variables, but we can greatly simplify the program. And then I will talk about, even with such simplification, we still find this solution using one-dimensional variables for one-dimensional array variables to be unsatisfactory. That's something I will talk about in the next video.